Two people steal money. One takes $500 from a convenience store. The other takes $50 million from investors through fraud. The first person goes to prison for 5 years. The second person negotiates a settlement, pays a fine, and keeps their job. This is not a failure of the justice system. This is the justice system functioning exactly as designed. Most people believe we have one legal system. We don't. We have two completely separate justice systems operating in the same country, under the same constitution, with entirely different rules. One system is for people who can afford lawyers. The other is for people who cannot. And the difference is not subtle. If you're wealthy and you commit a crime, what kind of crime do you commit? Financial fraud, tax evasion, environmental violations, insider trading, stock manipulation, hiding money in offshore accounts. These crimes involve millions, sometimes billions of dollars. And when wealthy people get caught, what happens? Usually nothing. If something does happen, their lawyers negotiate a settlement with prosecutors. The company pays a fine. No one admits wrongdoing. No one goes to jail. The fine is often less than the profit from the crime. It's not punishment. It's a business expense. Now compare this to someone without money. If you're poor and you commit a crime, what kind of crime do you commit? Drug dealing, theft, assault, shoplifting, street crimes. Well, what happens when you get caught? You get arrested immediately. You can't afford bail, so you sit in jail for months waiting for trial. You get assigned a public defender who has 500 other cases and no time for yours. The prosecutor offers you a plea deal. Take 3 years or risk 10 at trial. You're scared. You take the deal, you go to prison, and when you get out, you have a criminal record, which means you can't get a job, you can't get housing. In some states, you can't even vote. One mistake and your life is functionally over. This is not an accident. This is design. Let's talk about scale. If someone shoplifts $500 worth of goods from a store, that's bad. It's theft. It should have consequences. But if a CEO commits securities fraud and steals $50 million from investors, that's not just bad. That's 100,000 times worse in pure dollar terms. So who goes to jail? The person who stole $500. The CEO? Their company pays a settlement. Often the settlement is tax deductible. The CEO might get a bonus that same year. There are pharmaceutical executives who raised the price of life-saving medication by 5,000%. Legal. There are bank executives who crashed the global economy in 2008, destroying millions of lives. Almost none went to prison. There are corporate executives who knowingly dumped toxic chemicals into rivers, poisoning entire communities. They paid fines. They're still in business. Meanwhile, a person caught with a small amount of drugs faces mandatory minimum sentencing. 10 years, 20 years. No negotiation, no settlement. The judge has no discretion. This is called mandatory minimum sentencing, and it only applies to certain crimes. The crimes poor people commit. Wealthy crimes don't have mandatory minimums. They have negotiations. This system didn't appear by accident. It was built deliberately, over decades, through specific policy decisions. First, understand who writes the laws. Legislators write laws, and legislators need campaign funding. Where does that funding come from? Wealthy individuals, corporations, industry groups. So when tax laws are written, who's in the room advising legislators? Accountants and lawyers representing wealthy clients. When financial regulations are written, who testifies before Congress? Bank executives and Wall Street lobbyists. When environmental regulations are written, who has access to the decision makers? Corporate lawyers representing polluting industries. The result is a legal code that's thousands of pages long, full of loopholes that only expensive lawyers know how to navigate. This is not corruption in the traditional sense. This is the system operating exactly as it was designed to operate. Wealthy people don't break laws. They hire lawyers to find legal ways around laws. And when those legal ways don't exist, they hire lobbyists to create them. Meanwhile, laws targeting poor people are simple and harsh. No loopholes, no negotiations, mandatory sentences. This creates two entirely different experiences of the legal system. For wealthy people, laws are obstacles to navigate. For poor people, laws are traps to avoid. And if you fall into the trap, there's no way out. Now, let's go deeper. Why do poor people and rich people experience the legal system so differently? Because they're taught from childhood to relate to authority differently. If you grow up poor, your parents teach you to obey authority. Why? Because for poor people, challenging authority is dangerous. If you talk back to a police officer, you might get arrested. If you challenge your boss, you might get fired. If you question a teacher, you might get suspended. So poor parents teach their children, keep your head down, follow orders, don't make trouble. This is rational. For poor people, the legal system is a threat. One mistake can destroy your life. Criminal record, no job, no housing, no future. So poor children learn from day one that authority is dangerous, that the safest strategy is obedience. Now compare this to wealthy families. Wealthy parents teach their children that authority is negotiable. Why? Because for wealthy people, authority is negotiable. If a wealthy teenager gets caught with drugs, their parents hire a lawyer. The lawyer negotiates with the prosecutor. Maybe the charges get reduced. Maybe they go to rehab instead of jail. Maybe the whole thing disappears. If a wealthy person gets pulled over for drunk driving, their lawyer appears. Suddenly, there are questions about whether the stop was legal, whether the test was administered correctly. Maybe the case gets dismissed. Wealthy children learn rules are flexible, laws have exceptions. Everything is negotiable if you have the right resources. And this lesson carries forward into adulthood. Wealthy people are comfortable taking risks, pushing boundaries, operating in gray areas because they know that if something goes wrong, they have lawyers to fix it. Poor people are terrified of taking any risk because they know that if something goes wrong, they're going to prison. Same society, same laws on paper, completely different realities. Here's what most people don't want to acknowledge. The system is not broken. When we say the justice system is broken, we're implying it's supposed to work differently. It's not broken. It's functioning exactly as intended. The purpose of the justice system is not to create fairness. The purpose is to maintain order and protect property. And in a society with extreme wealth inequality, maintaining order means protecting the interests of those who own things. Think about what crimes are punished most harshly. Crimes against property, theft, burglary, robbery. These are crimes that threaten ownership. Now think about what crimes are punished lightly or not at all. Wage theft. When employers steal money from workers by not paying overtime, misclassifying employees, or simply not paying wages owed. Wage theft in America costs workers more than all robberies, burglaries, and car thefts combined. But how many CEOs are in prison for wage theft? Almost none, because the system is designed to protect those who own things from those who don't, not the other way around. When a poor person steals from a corporation, that's crime. Prison. When a corporation steals from workers, that's a civil matter, a fine, a settlement. We call this the rule of law. But there's nothing neutral about it. Laws are written by people with power to protect people with power. And enforcement reflects that. So why doesn't this change? Because both groups have reasons to maintain the current system. Wealthy people obviously benefit. They can take risks without consequences. They can bend rules without punishment. Their wealth is protected by laws that treat property crimes more seriously than human harm. But here's the interesting part. Poor people also, paradoxically, have reasons not to challenge this system too directly. Because if you're poor and you fully accept that the legal system is rigged, that you'll never get a fair trial, that police and prosecutors and judges are all working against you, what does that mean? It means you have no hope of justice, and humans need hope. So instead, poor people blame themselves. I shouldn't have been there. I should have known better. I made a mistake. This is psychologically easier than accepting that the entire system is designed to criminalize poverty, and wealthy people tell themselves a different story. I worked hard for this. I earned the right to protect my wealth. Those people broke the law. I just found legal ways to do what I needed to do. Both groups maintain beliefs that allow the system to continue unchanged. Wealthy people believe they deserve protection. Poor people believe they deserve punishment. And the system, built on these shared beliefs, reproduces itself generation after generation. Two people steal money. One takes $500. The other takes $50 million. We call the first person a criminal. We call the second person a business person who made an error in judgment. This is not hypocrisy. This is not broken. This is the system recognizing different categories of people and applying different rules accordingly. You can call this unfair. You can call this unjust. But you cannot call this accidental. Every element, from who writes the laws to who enforces them to who faces consequences, is working exactly as designed. The question is not why billionaires never face consequences. The question is, why did we ever expect they would?